The Trojan War, this ancient and epic conflict, is one of the best-known stories in the history of Western culture. It is not only the core content of the ancient Greek epic the Iliad, but also an eternal symbol in Western literature and culture where heroism, betrayal, and fate are intertwined. The causes, processes, and outcomes of this war are intricate. The fates of the heroes, the interventions of the gods, and the interactions among numerous historical figures have formed this solemn, stirring, and legendary piece of history. The cause of the Trojan War stemmed from a highly dramatic dispute. The gods of Greece had an argument over a golden apple. In the legend, the goddesses Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite vied for the title of the most beautiful goddess inscribed on the golden apple. To determine who was the most beautiful, the gods decided to let the human prince Paris make the judgment. Paris was the son of King Priam of Troy. When the three goddesses respectively promised him power, wisdom, and love, Paris did not hesitate to choose Aphrodite, and the goddess's reward to him was the most beautiful woman, Helen, the queen of Sparta. This decision became the trigger of the Trojan War. Although Helen was already married to King Menelaus of Sparta, her beauty was desired by many heroes. Paris's abduction of Helen provoked the wrath of Sparta and a declaration of war against Troy. The fury of Menelaus almost engulfed the entire Greek world. To retrieve Helen, various Greek city-states united and formed a huge coalition army. Agamemnon, the brother of Menelaus, became the commander of this coalition. The composition of the coalition army almost included the strongest heroes and princes of the Greek world at that time. Among them were great heroes such as Achilles, Odysseus, Hector, Patroclus, and so on. After the assembly of the Greek coalition, they began a long siege of Troy. Ancient wars did not have modern weapons and long-distance communication methods. Therefore, this war lasted for as long as 10 years. During these 10 years, heroes waged arduous struggles on the battlefield, and almost every battle could determine the trend of the entire war. On the battlefield of the Trojan War, the two most famous heroes were undoubtedly Achilles of Greece and Hector of Troy. Achilles, as the strongest warrior of the Greek coalition, was almost unrivaled. His bravery and fearlessness made him a legend on the battlefield. However, he was not invulnerable. Achilles' mother, the goddess Thetis, dipped him into the river Styx at his birth, making his body almost impervious to weapons. The only weak point was his heel, and thus Achilles' heel became an idiom in later generations. Hector, as the Prince of Troy, was also the strongest warrior in the Trojan army. His bravery and loyalty were admired by the whole city. However, although Hector was a prince and had excellent combat skills, he was always no match for Achilles. The fury of Achilles was ignited after the death of his close friend Patroclus. Patroclus lost his life in the battle with Hector, which made Achilles have a deep hatred for Hector. The death of Patroclus was one of the most tragic events in the Trojan War. Patroclus was not only the good friend of Achilles but also his beloved. Because Achilles temporarily withdrew from the battle due to personal anger during the war, Patroclus put on his armor and tried to fight in his place. However, Patroclus was eventually killed in the duel with Hector. The death of Patroclus enraged Achilles completely. Having lost his dear friend, he decided to return to the battle and vowed to avenge his friend. His return not only changed the course of the war but also cast a huge shadow over the fates of Hector and Troy. When Achilles returned to the battlefield, Hector had already become Troy's last glimmer of hope. In the duel between Achilles and Hector, both of them demonstrated extremely high combat skills and heroic spirit. In the end, Hector couldn't withstand Achilles' attack and was stabbed in the throat, falling on the battlefield. At the moment of death, Hector begged Achilles to return his body to his parents in Troy so that a proper funeral could be held. However, Achilles' anger made him reject this request. He dragged Hector's body behind his chariot as a sign of contempt for Troy. This cruel act not only shocked the Greeks but also displeased the gods. Gods such as Hera and Athena began to interfere in the war situation, making the situation of the war even more complicated. The climax of the Trojan War occurred in the 10th year. The Greek coalition still hadn't been able to break through Troy's sturdy city walls. However, the final victory didn't rely entirely on combat but on wisdom. Odysseus, the wisest hero among the Greeks, put forward a bold plan, the Trojan Horse strategy. Odysseus suggested that the Greeks build a huge wooden horse, pretend to retreat and send this horse into the city of Troy. The Trojans thought that the Greeks had already retreated and regarded the wooden horse as a trophy of victory and brought it into the city. However, elite Greek warriors were hidden inside the belly of the wooden horse. In the dead of night, they quietly climbed out of the horse, opened the city gates, and the Greek army took the opportunity to counterattack. Troy was completely captured and the city was engulfed in flames. The heroic deeds of Achilles and Hector became legends in history, while the Trojan horse strategy became a symbol of wisdom and deception. The Trojan War was not just a hand-to-hand combat. It was a profound exploration of heroism, fate, wisdom, and the complexity of human nature. Achilles' wrath, Hector's loyalty, and Odysseus' ingenuity formed the core of this war, and the final victory was an embodiment of human wisdom and strategy. After the war ended, the ruins of Troy became a witness to history. Whether it was the heroic figures in the epics or the numerous complex emotions and wisdom demonstrated in this war, they all influenced countless literary works and cultural creations in later generations. Today, the ruins of Troy still stand on the coastline of modern-day Turkey, attracting thousands of tourists and history enthusiasts to come and pay their respects. No matter how time passes, the legend of the Trojan War will always be passed down in the long river of human history,